got on there, son, you had such a strong voice. You got on there and you said that line with such conviction. And that's kind of like what I try to do with my acting, you know? I mean, because of the reality of my life, how art came from tragedy, how I really used, you know, the arts to find my own emotional transition. Whenever I go onto a stage or whenever I go in front of a camera, I just try to put that conviction in there. And the thing is when I meet Spartacus fans and they say to me, Crixus, when he died, you know, we cried, you know, or you know, you were just, you know, when I roared in the arena with that defiance of pain and being crushed as a human being to just rise just barely above that to survive. I know what those, I sort of know what those feelings feel like. So when I do it, I do it for real. I do it because I think that's my job. That's you know, I got a pathway forward through these arts. It helped me survive. So when I have to be, I was talking to some actors here before. Where are you guys? Where are those two people? There you are. Yeah. You know, talking to you about acting and finding who you are in the role, and just finding the truth. You know, this is the best way forward, I think, for any actor. A lot of people want to do it because they think they're going to end up in the magazines, or they're going to get famous and earn millions of dollars. That can happen, but the people who are really responsible for these productions, these big films, these big studios, they really are looking for people who can connect and build an audience. Sometimes if you're just beautiful, for some reason you get away with it. Some people do. They call it the Megan Fox phenomenon. Not that Megan Fox has but you know, anyway, it's that dedication that I've tried to put into my characters that you know, I hope has worked for people who follow me. I'm now playing Deathstroke. You know, Slade Wilson Deathstroke. Yeah, I just filmed a scene, not last night, but the night before, in the dark woods up in Vancouver. And I can't give it away, but you know, Slade and Deathstroke is getting dark. Very dark. This stuff there's hell to pay. Who saw The Promise the other night? Yeah. That promise is a very serious promise. I'm going to find it interesting to see just how that play out of all of this is going to affect audiences and the fans of Deathstroke. But one thing's for sure. The other night I was a bit scared on playing this scene, but I had to just sort of sit in it and go for it and use a lot of experience to just bring this scene happening. I think it's going to be episode 19. It's a real cliffhanger, but I hope you continue to enjoy it. But listen, I could talk about myself, but I really want to answer some of your questions because it's a Q&A. But once again, I just want to say my life has been a transition of you know, some difficulties that have taken me into these arts. This is my way of functioning and reaching out and communicating with people. That's what's most important to me. Coming to these conventions is about going full circle. I mean, Spartacus is done. It's now on DVDs for the last 2 years. But I can still come here and I can still connect with those original Spartacus fans and just say, yeah. Yeah, we did it. We did it. So anyway, why don't we just open up to some questions? Who's out there? Oh, this kid here. Well, let me tell you, kid, listen. Okay, it's like this, right? All of a sudden, I'm off that island. And the big thing is that Slade Wilson has obviously spent about 5 years defining himself so that he can come into that house. I mean, he's wearing a Hugo Boss suit. What was he wearing on the island? Exactly, he was wearing scraps on the island. And what did you see the episode the other night? Do you know what type of car he was driving? Yeah, it was a Lamborghini. So he's really cool now. He's got a lot of money, so basically he spent about 5 years getting himself together so he can take on this revenge against Oliver and his family. So, you know, so basically, yeah. For me, it's exciting as an actor because I'm no longer, you know, just stuck on this military guy. But there's a lot that's been planned here. So as an actor, I've got a lot of things that I can develop and become stronger as a performer. I hope you enjoy it. In a couple of weeks, you might like me. Thanks for your question, Dave. I'm enjoying being in States. Oh yeah. You know, I mean, I grew up in Australia mostly. I was born in New Zealand, but my mother was from Australia. My father, when he met her, was like, the way you make me feel. I can't sing my father going, you really turned me on. But anyway, yeah, I mean, half my friends, or most of my friends are in Australia, and but then, you know, when I got Spartacus, it was a great chance for me to go back to my birth country, New Zealand, and sort of get in touch, especially with my Maori roots. You know, I'm part Maori, which is native New Zealander. And before I would do any Spartacus fighting scenes, I'd always do like a haka. Well, the haka is like this war dance that you prepare yourself for battle, you know. So, you know, if I spiritually enhanced myself with this haka before any fight scenes on Crixus, it would help me rise to that level, you know. Because, I mean, it's soft when you're in a studio. I mean, it's soft. People are running around giving you coffees and sandwiches, and you know, everyone's sitting around texting on their phones, and, you know, everyone's telling jokes. And then suddenly you have the responsibility of an actor to stand up in costume and play a guy that actually died on a battlefield in 74 BC, fighting for his life, just to be, you know, I mean, the responsibility I thought I had to portray Crixus, for everything that deserves to be acknowledged for. I mean, you know, it almost, it's like a fantasy story to people who watch it on television, because it's so long ago, we don't even really think about the ramifications of it. But, you know, I mean, everybody remembers the Second World War, everybody remembers these recent battles that were really about, you know, creating a planet where we have choice. Now, these guys had that same battle, but it hasn't been forgotten because it was reignited by our television show and by the movie by Kirk Douglas, you know. So it's been around for that long. The fact that it was that important, you know, is the only reason it's lasted that long. So for me, playing Crixus was a real commitment, a huge commitment. You know, so you know, New Zealand's like this cultural home for me, you know, and you know, again, for actors, finding something within myself that could connect to the character, that could make it real, is what I use to play the character. But just to answer the question, I get back when I can, darling. But you know, I think for the next 4 months, I'm doing a convention in some city somewhere, and it's tough. It's tough, but you know, my friends understand that. But Sydney, sort of around the Sydney area. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Okay, we have a question. Thank you. Abby?
Yeah.
This is for our Spartacus fans.
Yeah.
We have a heart-wrencher here. We know the relationship you had with Spartacus in season 1. What was your relationship with Andy Whitfield off-screen?
You know, when you work, Andy was an incredible soul, like a beautiful man, He had 2 little kids, you know. Well, he's got 2 little kids, you know. They're with us. Actually, it's not. Mate, excuse me. Excuse me. It's not better. Hold on. Oh, that's better. Okay, cool. I should know better, you know. Like, never question the technical guys because they're always right. Yeah, Andy was very special. When you work on a film set as many hours as we do, people would think we all hang out all the time, but really when you spend all day, every day on film with people, you tend to just get out there and you meet every now and then socially. I'll tell you what, Andy had a great relationship with Jai Courtney, who played his best friend. I think sometimes when you're on roles, you know, the roles that you play sometimes play out a little bit in your personal life as well. But him and Jai made our famously as friends. So I'd hang out a lot. I mean, I had a lot of respect, and Andy had a lot of respect for me. But we both have families, and he'd go out, leave set, and I'd leave set, and we'd go, great scenes today, brother. Great, you know. You know, in hindsight, I wish I'd spent a lot more time. You know, but you know, nobody knew what was going to happen, and when it happened quickly. Andy was very private about his illness. Nobody even knew at the time when Andy passed away that he was that far in the red with cancer. We got stopped on set one day, and they said everybody's got to come and meet in the main hall. We actually thought we'd been cancelled as a show, and we all sort of walked in going, "Oh, this is not," you know, in terms of our show running on. And then one of our producers stood up and he said, "Look, I have to give you the news. Andy passed away this morning," and it was a huge shock to the whole world. You know, everybody knew what an incredible soul, spirit this man was. Just in, you know, the one thing I think is the saving grace about the Andy Whitfield life story was that he was able to play Spartacus for his kids especially, because it was such a wonderful performance. There's such energy, great energy encapsulated in that one series that you know, his son used to run up to me on set and go, "My daddy's gonna get you." Come on, I'll take you. One day he ran up to me. They just released these cards. They were going to do a whole production run of merchandise for Spartacus, and it never happened because of what happened with the show. They always felt reluctant to push product forward. But at one stage they started to make merchandise, and they brought out these cards. And Jesse, his son, ran up to me and he goes, and he had a Spartacus card, and he didn't realise there was a Crixus card, right? And I had it in my back pocket, and I went, one week before we finished filming, I hadn't seen Jesse, his son, for a long time, and Jesse showed up on set. And this little kid, you know, imagine, you know, talk about these true heartaches, you know, this little kid, you know, kind of walked on the set, and I went, "Jesse." And the last time I'd seen him was when we were holding these cards up at each other. And his little face, so proud of his dad, you know. And I looked at this kid, and I saw this kid, and I knew that loss. I'd lost my mother, I knew that loss, and I saw this kid, and I could see it, you know. And I just said, "Jesse, hey." And he turned around and he went, and he just walked straight toward me, hey. There was no like before, it was like, it wasn't reluctance, but it was like, "My daddy," you know, and that sort of thing. And he came straight toward me, I think because he knew I was connected to his father. And he came straight up, and I just grabbed him, and I picked him up, and I gave him this huge hug, and Andy, if I ever got to do anything for your brother, it was that one hug for your son. Andy Whitfield.
Question in the back.
I'm nervous now. What are you planning to ask me? What was the last bit? You want me to give her a hug? Should I hug her? So I hug her! Yes, brother.
A short question for all the Spartacus fans. What lies beneath your feet?
Sacred ground. Watered by the tears of blood. It's a pleasure.
I was wondering how difficult it was for you to do all the new Spartacus.
You know, the way I act, darling, the way I choose to act, the way I choose to perform, I don't even think about that. You know, I mean, to tell you the truth, great, bring it on. You know, I remember one scene where the vulnerability of the scene had to be there. It was the one where Crixus was brought in front of Alithea and Domina and Navia, you know, and they made him remove his subligaria. I remember Andy, you know, was quite, you know, Andy didn't want to do nude scenes, and that was his choice as an actor, but I knew that scene had to be done. It had to be done. It was like shooting a World War II movie, and if you were playing a Jew going to the ghetto, going to the termination camp, you have to show that at a point in civilization, there's times where people are just completely degraded, and they have no choice, they have no power, they have nothing, they're just stripped naked. And I knew that scene was very important to emphasize that. But it was freezing cold on set that morning. Here we go. Can we just, can we cut out of this really quickly? Yeah, but you know, yeah. This never crossed my mind. You know, I guess for me it's like playing piano sometimes. You know, Spartacus for me was like playing Rachmaninoff on a piano, classical music. You know, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes you just, you know, and you can't at the time be thinking about anything but the absolute intent of the drama involved. You know, and yeah. You know, hey, we're all born naked.
Thanks for sharing your stories about passing. Moving on, more to a personal question. Since you've been around...
A personal question? Just moving beyond you being naked, let me ask you a personal question.
Being where you shot on location and everything in different places, as a personal aspect, I was wondering what you would see as the most beautiful place where you go back to visit, spend some time traveling, maybe not.
Well, it's funny because Spartacus was shot entirely indoors. We were never outside. It was totally green screen for environment. So I remember when I shot 30 Days of Night. Does anybody know 30 Days of Night?
I forgot he was in there.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie.
I get my head removed by an axe. Sorry, kids. But anyway, that was shot down on the South Island of New Zealand, and was just stunning. I mean, you know, we were like out in the snow at the same location that they shot Lord of the Rings. When I shoot The Hobbit, I'm not down there with all those guys running around in the beautiful outdoors. I'm indoors in a motion capture studio. So again, I don't have any environmental, sidekick from that. Where I'm filming Arrow now is probably the most picturesque environment in Vancouver. We shoot Arrow up there. You know, sometimes we're out in the woods and it's just quite. You know, it's quite stunning, you know, the backdrop of the show. So you know, yeah, I'd say that right now, Vancouver's probably the most lush, picturesque location I've shot on. Oh, no. Who remembers the film? Did anybody see the movie The Condemned? Any WWE fans out there?
No, I didn't get to watch The Condemned.
Well, you know how we all got taken to an island? Basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, a bunch of prisoners are taken out to an island to play a death sport where it's being telecast live to the public, where all these prisoners have to... It's just like a modern society where killing is part It's not too far ahead. I hope not. But anyway, but it's like, you know, we're all sent to an island, we have to eliminate each other. But as we go out there, we're all thrown out of helicopters into the ocean, and then we have to swim ashore. So I got to do my own jump out of this helicopter into the water, right? And it was actually like about, 20, 30, feet, meters up in the air. It was a big jump. But as we went out in these helicopters out around the side of this island, I looked down, and we're all looking down. We're going, oh wow, look, there's dolphins. Oh wow, there's a sea cow, or whatever you call it. And, oh, there's a shark. Oh, there's actually more than one shark. There's a few sharks down there. Look, there's a few sharks down there. And we're going, wait up, there's a few sharks down there, guys. And they said that we've got a couple of divers in the water with these electrical sonar things that scare the sharks away. Are you sure? Did you see the movie Jaws? Okay. Sharks. Yeah. It was fun. It was fun. That was very picturesque. Amazing place to shoot. Tangalooma Island. Next. Early.
How long did it take to shoot The Hobbit?
You know what, darling? It didn't take me a long time at all. As a matter of fact, it was fly in, fly out. It was, like I really hold that opportunity dear to my heart, but in terms of the experience was really short. The experience I hold dear to my heart because the technology involved, I mean, look, let's talk about it in terms of money, right? To make Spartacus, it was like Spartacus was a very expensive show to make. It cost about $5 million per episode.
Good night.
Okay. Now, Arrow, I don't know, it's a similar vicinity, but I don't think it's that much. I think it's probably more like 3. Okay? Now that is about 45 minutes of footage. Okay? 45 minutes of footage for $5 million. Okay? Now, The Hobbit is about 3.5 times that long, but it cost like $400 million to make. Now, where that money goes, that's like so much more expensive, my darling. And where that money goes is it goes into technology. Okay. Now, you would think that coming onto the set of Spartacus or the Arrow, you'd go like, wow, this must cost a lot of money, man. They had all those camera crews and big cranes and big sets. Okay. But if you arrive down at Peter Jackson's studio in Wellington, New Zealand, you think you're being abducted by aliens. Okay, you walk in there and you feel the money. And how I made that is I made it with motion capture. So the thing about motion capture, okay, do you understand what motion capture is? Do you know what that is?
You want to put your
Do you know Gollum? You know the character Gollum from Lord of the Rings? Okay, his name's Andy Serkis. Now, I met Andy Serkis before I even played The Hobbit, and I had a conversation with him, which was very, very strange, because a year later, I actually stepped into his shoes. But what he does is he wears a little tight outfit, right? Like a leotard.
Yeah, that's Andy Serkis.
That has balls on it, balls that sort of make out your skeleton. And what happens is you start to move in a space, and there's these, like a camera, but they're called motion sensors that are located around the room, and they read these little dots that make you look like a skeleton. They aren't filming you like a person, they're filming your motion. And that skeleton goes into a computer, and then an artist paints the character with computer graphics over the top of that skeleton. Then I'm wearing a helmet that's got like a GoPro camera on the front of it, and they've got little dots all over my face. So if I go, ah, you jumped. What if I did that really close? Look. If I go, I can't just tell you this next bit just yourself, so I've got to do my bit. If I do that, all of those little markers move inside a computer. So they paint Azog's face over it, and all of his face goes like that.
So I do the skeleton, then I do his face, and they paint over it, and they create the character. That's why he's 9 foot tall. You notice I'm not 9 foot tall? So, yeah, and then, you know the wag, you know the wolf. You know the wolf that I ride? In the studio, that's like a box. It looks like this. Look. I'm riding the wag, see? You feel like I'm in a leotard, covered in balls, with a helmet with a GoPro in my face, riding a table. It's true. And then an artist afterwards takes all of that movement, all of that basis, the skeleton of the scene. He takes it and he paints the artwork over the top of it. And that's why it costs $400 million. Because that's just one part of a big part, darling. But it's a very, very unique experience. And it's very different to the normal acting where you portray yourself in front of a camera. But this is a technology that's enabling all kinds of creatures to be created. So you can imagine, in the next 20 years, there's going to be lots of movies for your generation that are going to be incredibly exciting because of motion capture.
First of all, welcome to Waco, and keep up the good work.
Waco.
Keep up the good work. And if you see Lucy Lawless, tell her she's still hot.
You old timer.
Yeah, you know it. You know
I was in Xena with her. I was in Xena. I played Mark Antony with her. Yeah.
Well, what's the future hold for you? Are there any big projects we got to keep our eyes out for?
You know what? I've still got to do the third Hobbit film. Although they've filmed all of the live footage, Peter Jackson has to still do the final edit on that film, and then they call me in because I get put on top of the frames. You know, so they have to make sure of all their frames in the edit, and they'll call me in to do that. I've still got to do that. Arrow's had me very tied up. You know, I'm basically, I'm signed as a cast regular to Arrow. When you're signed to a network like that, it means you're not allowed to work for other networks. You pretty much don't have any spare time to go out and do other projects. But toward the end of the year, we're hoping some things are going to come around. I've just started, having some meetings and talks about certain projects. So things are looking good, mate. I got no complaints. I'm moving in the right direction. Hey, over here.
I think it's about time we have a arrow question.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody. Just shut the hell up about Spartacus. Hobbit.
A couple months ago, Stephen Amell kind of made a disclaimer about WB talking about there's such a big demand for superhero films on the big screen. Would you be willing to reprise your role as Slade Wilson?
You know what? All of this is possible. Anything's possible, right? I mean, this is a very tough thing to transition television series onto film and to have success out of that at this moment in time. I don't think there's any great examples of, Twilight and stuff like that have had a go at it. Like it can be successful. It'd be very, very much an observation of how it's done at the end of the day to whether you'd be involved in it, whether you'd be willing to be involved in it, whether the studios, whether Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers Television are going to amalgamate a brand and actually take it from television to film. It's a big decision between them. I mean, there's discussions about all these hero things because they're very popular. It's approved in Batman, everything remains Superman. It's a proven money maker. Transitioning from television to film is another thing. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, would I play Deathstroke on film? Sure, but you know what? I would play him on television first because you have more time. Crixus, if I'd done the movie Spartacus, and I'm going to talk about Spartacus now. If I'd had more time, if I'd done the movie Spartacus, I would have got 4 scenes as Crixus to speak. Nobody would have been emotionally involved. I was in people's living rooms for 4 years creating that character, and that's why he resonated. Deathstroke, Slade Wilson, everyone's watching it, everyone's building it. It's like, wow. The reason why Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey is doing a television show now is because television's got power. And it's actually got more power to build characters. You get more out of it in the long run. Just film is that big grand screen. I think the experience that you can get off television now is actually matching, if not beating film, if you invest your time in it. Breaking Bad. You know, there's just a whole bunch of examples, you know, that are starting to follow this new trend. I bet you in the next 20 years there's going to be a huge shift. Yes, mate.
I was curious, what is the biggest celebrity that you met? I can't believe I just met him. Oh my God.
You know what? I was living in New Zealand, coming off a television show, and got asked to go on audition for Tomb Raider 2. And I went and did the audition, and I felt really good about it. Before I went for the audition, I went out to this island and I watched all of Angelina Jolie's movies. I drew this centipede on my arm, I put this tattoo on myself, and I thought to myself, how would I get through to this girl? How would I make an impact on this girl's life? Because I think that any role that you play opposite of anybody, you have to realise what sort of impact you're going to have on their life, otherwise it's kind of like just about yourself. So I did this, and I went and did this audition, and afterwards I remember ringing my agent and going, oh, I did this really good audition. I mean, I felt like I was really in the moment there with the reader in New Zealand. And she went, yeah, Manu, okay, the whole world's auditioning for this one. I was like, okay, I thought I did something good, but 3 months later, I'm snowboarding down a mountain in New Zealand, and I snowboard like I played Crixus. So, shall I begin? And so I went over a jump, lost it, landed on my wrist, snapped my wrist, broke it. I luckily got a helicopter ride off the mountain. Everyone was going like, you're so lucky, man. Usually you've got to get a 4-hour ambulance ride, but you got to go on the I was lucky. I went up and went to this hospital. Some young student doctors were there, and they used me as a sort of a guinea pig for guessing how to deal with this. And they put me into a cast, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then a mate of mine drove me back to the mountain. I grabbed my car, was driving one back to Auckland, and as I was driving along, I saw these 2 dots falling out of the sky, and I went, oh, what's that? And then I noticed it was parachuters, their parachutes open. And all my mates were up doing this snowboarding, and I couldn't do it, and I went, and it was such a beautiful day, I went, I'm going to go jump out of a plane with my newly broken wrist. So they pulled in, and I went up in this plane, and jumped out and parachuted down. I got to the bottom, and I went to the hangar, and I was on such a high, and my phone was ringing, and I picked the phone up, and my manager went, Manu, you know, you said you did a good audition for that Tomb Raider thing. They want to fly you to London in 2 days. And I'm like, yeah! I just broke my wrist. My manager's like, what? I said, I've just broken my wrist. I'm in a cast. And she went, oh. I said, oh, look, how can we do something about this? Can we, I don't know, can we? And she said, oh, look, I said, the doctor said it could get good in 4 weeks. I might be able to get the cast off. And anyway, so she started a bunch of phone calls to London, to the producers of Tomb Raider. And anyway, they bought me a ticket. And I jumped on a plane 2 days later, and I flew to London. And I'm waiting in Pinewood Studios, walking around this studio, and they're going, oh, Miss Jolie's just arriving now in her limousine. You know, Angelina Jolie. You know, she's about to arrive, and you're going to meet her and have a meeting with the writers. And the writer really loves your audition. You did a fan, you know, you just got to do the screen test with her now. And I'm like, oh, great. So she comes in. I'm wearing this backpack that was really, it was made by Fubu. It was like this backpack. It was really flat to my back, and I could put my script in it. And it had tight arm things around here. And the first thing that she walked in, and she was amazing. I mean, I was in this big long studio, and she entered about over in the corner over there. And she walked in, and they pointed at me, and she started walking toward me. Actresses don't usually do that. They're like, but yeah, so she came over, and I said, oh, hey, nice to meet you. She goes, oh, yeah, well, let's go have a meeting with the oh, I like that backpack. So you like this backpack? She said, yeah. Oh, let's come with me. We went up to the wardrobe department and she had photos taken with my backpack on because it had these straps around. Now, do you remember the poster for Tomb Raider 2? She's in the silver outfit and she's got the straps around her shoulder. She's all strapped in like this thing. That was my backpack.
Nice.
I'll tell you, there wasn't a credit for my backpack. But anyway, after we had the meeting with the writer, the producer came up and said, "Hey, listen, Manu, you've got to go see an orthopedic surgeon. We've got to find out more about your wrist." I went to see the orthopedic surgeon in London. He said, "You need an operation on that. Whoever fixed it at that hospital did a bad job. You're going to have to get a bone graft and pins." And I went, it was a $1.8 million contract. $1.8 million, people. Do you know how much $1.8 million is, darling? It's half of an hour episode. Anyway, this doctor obviously told them. I went back to my hotel. I got a phone call a few hours later. They said, it was my manager, she said they could fly you home in the morning, it's over. I didn't even get to do the screen test. It was like, end of story. One of these things that happens in this industry, you know? It was heartbreaking. I was flying first class in Philippine Airlines out of Heathrow Airport, and this woman came past with Dom Perignon, and she said, "Champagne, sir?" And I went, and I think I started crying. But you know, hey, look, you know, I mean, this industry is like this, you know. But you know, I may never have gotten Crixus, and I swear to you, Crixus is the one thing I'll always be thankful in my life for. You know, I'm glad, and you know, yeah. Anyway.
All right, we have a couple more minutes left, so one more question.
Okay.
Up front.
Say again?
She's ready up front.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you can do a lot, but like
All the time. Well, I don't know.
how exactly do you like when you're in a scene where you have to like look like you're super sad and crying and like how do you really connect to that emotion? Like how do you?
You know, there's a lot of things that go into a scene like that. You know, I
I'm
find
gonna
the
head
best
out
thing
towards the
for
photo op area.
any preparation for acting is just to be allowing yourself just to be very open at the first point. Don't be scared by it. You know, I remember when I was younger, you know, as an actor, and I would read scenes that had all this stuff in it, and I'd be like, oh, you know, if I do that, am I going to embarrass myself, or can I reach that level? You know, through time and experience, it does become second nature to find the release button, you know, and to just go there. Because you've done it a lot, and you can become confident about the fact that you've done it a lot. You know, I mean, it's in there, it's in me, you know. I remember walking through the hospital after my mother had been announced dead after the car accident that I was in with her when I was 15 years old. I remember walking into a stairway, and it was the first day of spring, and I remember seeing how blue the sky was outside, what a beautiful day it was. And my mother had just died, and I remember just feeling this absolute, like, I could have died, I could have crawled up and died right then, you know what I mean? That feeling is still in my files. Those things don't disappear. You know, the pain of my mother's death has never disappeared. And, you know, if I talk about it, if I can relate it to people in stories, if I can sit down at a table and have a conversation like I did with Anna Strasberg, who's a great acting teacher in New York, and I had this conversation with her about it, she said, "Manu, you know, that's what you got to use, you know, sometimes, you know, that's amazing that you can express that feeling." That's what you just got to tap into and use, you know. I'm glad that I don't have to fake it, you know, and I think the audience is glad that I don't have to fake it. I mean, come on, Spartacus fans, we'll get to Arrow in a second. Spartacus fans, come on. They gave me great material with which to sink my emotions into, you know. I mean, they imprisoned me. They imprisoned us. We were all in that prison together. They threw us into the arena. They had us persecuted. They gave us a touch of love. Little fingers through bars to try to get a bit of a touch of love. You know, These are things that I hope I can continue to bring honestly and truthfully to you as an audience. I respect you because of this. I wouldn't have any of this opportunity. It might sound stereotype, but I'd have none of this opportunity if I wasn't going in that camera and out the other end to you guys. And you know, as I say, there's nothing more humbling than getting up on a stage like this in any part of the world, be it this time Waco, and hearing that we connected, and we connected well. Long live the arts. And keep your emotions open, guys, and I'll keep on trying to feed mine to you, and let's stay in touch that way. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be out there for the next 2 days.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bennett. Another round of applause. Comicon would like to make a great announcement. In September, we're going to do Living Dead. They'll have some folks, some